Ever heard of a company called DeepSeek?
Oh, yeah, they've been pretty active in the AI scene lately.
Yeah, especially with all this new stuff they released during their open source week. That's what we're diving deep into today.
Cool. What exactly?
Specifically, a file system and a data framework, built on top of the file system, of course.
Sounds interesting.
And they're both designed to, well, turbocharge AI processes, let's say.
Okay, so DeepSeek is like diving headfirst into open source, huh? With some pretty hardcore tech, too.
Yeah, exactly. So should we start with the file system? It's called 3FS.
3FS.
Yeah, stands for Fireflyer File System.
Catchy.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, it's a big deal for AI, especially the large-scale stuff, where data storage and how you access that data is super important.
Makes sense, having to deal with these crazy huge data sets, right?
Exactly. And 3FS is a parallel file system, meaning it can spread data across, tons of devices and then pull from all of them at the same time.
So is that what gives it the speed?
It's a big part of it. It's not just theoretical speed either. They've gotten a read throughput of 6.6 terabytes per second.
Wow. And how big was the setup for that?
180 node cluster.
Geez, that is crazy fast. Like, you could download the entire Library of Congress in, what, a couple minutes?
Yeah, something like that. And that speed makes a huge difference for AI development.
I bet. So is it all about that parallel architecture? Or is there something else that makes 3FS so fast?
Well, the parallel setup is key, but there's more. It
Yeah.
also has a disaggregated architecture.
Okay, disaggregated. What's that mean exactly?
So think of it like a massive network of hard drives, all connected and accessible from anywhere. So applications can get the data no matter where it is physically. That makes things super fast.
And super flexible, too.
Yeah, no more waiting around for data transfers. That's a big deal for AI that needs to process information from a bunch of different places.
Yeah, I could see that. But speed isn't everything, is it? You need the data to be reliable, too, especially when you're training an AI.
You're right, and 3FS has a strong consistency to address that.
So how does it guarantee reliability?
Well, they use this protocol. It basically makes sure that all the copies of the data are, like, perfectly in sync. So even if a storage device fails, you don't lose anything.
Okay, so that's how they make sure the system is robust.
Right, but they also thought about making it easy to use. 3FS uses familiar file interfaces.
So developers don't need to learn a whole new system.
Nope, they can use the same tools and commands they're used to. That's huge for making sure people actually use it.
Yeah, totally. It lowers the barrier to entry. So earlier you were saying 3FS is about more than just speed. What other advantages does it have for AI workflows?
Well, one of the big ones is data prep. AI models are usually trained on mountains of data, and that data has to be cleaned and organized before it can be used. 3FS is really good at managing those massive data sets.
So it's like a data organizer, but for AI.
Yeah, something like that. It saves a ton of time and effort.
Cool. What about the actual process of feeding the data to the AI during training? Isn't that a bottleneck sometimes?
That's data loading, and yeah, it can be, but 3FS allows multiple computing nodes to access different parts of the data set at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like having a bunch of librarians all working at the same time,
Yeah.
to find exactly what you need instantly.
So that gets rid of the waiting for data to load, makes the whole training process more efficient.
Exactly. And then there's checkpoint saving.
Checkpoint saving.
Yeah, during training, you need to save your progress, right? You don't want to lose everything if something goes wrong.
Makes sense.
And with really big models, that can take a long time.
But 3FS takes care of that.
Yeah, I can do high throughput, parallel checkpoint saving. Basically, it can save massive models really quickly.
Okay, so like a snapshot of the AI's brain so you can pick up right where you left off.
Exactly. Oh, and there's another application I wanted to mention, inference KV cache.
KV what now?
KV cache, it's for optimizing LLM inference.
Okay, remind me what LLMs are again.
Large language models. Think like chatbots, the stuff that can write and talk like a human.
Right. And KV cache makes them faster.
Yeah, so when you use an LLM, it has to access a lot of data to come up with responses. KV cache is basically a super fast memory for the LLM. It keeps all the frequently used data right there ready to go.
So the LLM doesn't have to go searching through a whole library every time it needs to answer a question.
Exactly. And 3FS lets you implement KV cache really efficiently, which is a huge deal for LLM applications.
So we've heard a lot about the potential of 3FS, but how does it perform in, real-world situations?
Well, they've done a lot of benchmarking, and the results are pretty impressive. We already talked about that 6.6 terabyte read speed,
Right.
but they also ran a standard test called Gray Sort.
Graysort, what's that?
It measures how fast a system can sort a huge amount of data. So like a sorting competition for data processing systems.
Okay, and how did 3FS do?
They were able to sort 110.5 terabytes of data in just over 30 minutes.
Wow.
That's using the Smallpond framework, by the way.
Smallpond, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
Anyway, 3FS achieved an average throughput of 3.66 terabytes per minute with Smallpond.
It's pretty impressive.
And the KV cache performance was equally good. They got peak read throughputs of 40 gigabytes per second.
Okay, I'm definitely interested in learning more about this 3FS file system. And what about Smallpond? You mentioned that earlier. What's that all about?
Right, so Smallpond is the data framework that runs on top of 3FS.
So what exactly does a data framework do?
It basically manages the flow of data, makes it easier to process and analyze, like a conductor for an orchestra, making sure everything works together.
And Smallpond does that for 3FS.
Exactly, they work together. And Smallpond itself is designed for high performance, easy to use, and scalable.
So it's like the brains of the operation working with the brawn of 3FS.
Yeah, good way to put it. And it actually was used in that Graysort benchmark, so we know it can handle massive data sets.
So they're kind of a dream team for AI development.
They're pretty powerful, that's for sure. And DeepSeek decided to make both of them open source.
Oh, right. Didn't we talk about that earlier? It seems kind of counterintuitive, giving away your best tech.
Yeah. What do you think the benefit is for DeepSeek?
Well, open source is becoming pretty common in AI, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
How so?
It helps build a community around the technology, which means faster development, gets more people using it too.
It's like they're planting a seed and then letting a whole bunch of people help it grow.
Yeah, good analogy. Plus, open source helps attract talent, people who are really excited about the tech and want to work on it. And it's good PR for DeepSeek, shows they're leaders in the field.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
DeepSeek gets help from the community, and the community gets access to powerful tools.
Exactly. Developers don't have to start from scratch. They can just build on what's already there, which saves everyone time and money. So remember we were talking about that CRAQ protocol, the one that makes 3FS so reliable?
Yeah, it sounded pretty complex.
Well, CRAQ stands for Chain Replication with Atomic Quorum.
Okay, that clears things up.
Mm-hmm.
Just kidding. Can you give me the simplified version, like what makes it so special?
Okay, so imagine you have this really important piece of data. In 3FS, it gets copied to multiple storage devices, for backup.
Right.
CRAQ makes sure all those copies are perfectly in sync all the time, so they're consistent.
Got it. But how does it actually work?
Okay, think of it like a chain of command, but for the data. Updates go through this chain of storage devices, one after another. And the atomic quorum part means that any change has to be confirmed by a majority of the devices before it's official. It's like a system of checks and balances.
To make sure nothing gets corrupted or lost.
Exactly. And that same focus on reliability is everywhere in 3FS. Even the metadata service is built for high availability.
Metadata service. Now that sounds complicated.
Not really. It's basically the system that keeps track of all the files in 3FS. Think of it like the card catalog at a library.
Okay, I get it. So even if one of the storage devices has a problem, you don't lose track of where everything is.
Right. They really have thought of everything when it comes to making sure the data is safe and accessible.
It sounds like they did. They built this system to handle all the weird things that AI throws at it, especially since data is so important for AI.
Definitely. So you know how DeepSeek made 3FS and Smallpond open source?
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Well, it just got me thinking, open source is becoming a pretty big deal, especially for AI.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I think there are a few reasons. For companies like DeepSeek, it's a good way to build a community around their tech, which then helps it grow faster.
Right, like planting a seed and letting a whole bunch of people help it grow.
Exactly. And open source helps attract talent, people who are really excited about the tech and want to work on it. It's a way for DeepSeek to, show off a bit, too, show they're leaders in AI.
So it's a win-win for everyone. DeepSeek gets the community, and the community gets these powerful tools.
Yeah. And for developers, open source means they don't have to start from scratch. They can just build on what's already there. Saves time and money.
Are there any downsides to open sourcing? I mean, are there risks for DeepSeek?
There are definitely challenges. Managing an open source project takes a lot of work. You have to manage contributions, fix bugs, make sure the code is stable. It's not easy.
It's like you're hosting a giant coding party, but you're in charge of making sure everything doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, something like that. Plus, there's always the risk that someone might use the code for, bad stuff.
That's true.
But I think overall the benefits are bigger than the risks, especially in AI. Things move so fast in AI that collaboration is essential.
It's amazing to see how open source is changing the landscape of AI. I mean, who knows what kind of crazy applications will come out of the open source community?
It's really exciting. The possibilities are endless.
So we've gone from the nuts and bolts of 3FS to the big picture of open source. It's been a real eye-opener.
Yeah, we've barely scratched the surface, though. There's so much more to DeepSeek's work. Like, they've been pretty quiet about their specific plans for 3FS and Smallpond.
Yeah, it's still early. They're
Yeah.
probably still trying to figure out the best way to use them.
True. But since their work is open source, we can kind of get a glimpse into how they're thinking. And we might even be able to contribute and help shape the future of this stuff.
What if one of our listeners makes the next big breakthrough with 3FS and Smallpond?
You never know. That's the beauty of open source. Anyone can contribute. Anyone can make a difference.
Okay, enough about the future. What's next on our agenda for this deep dive? We've been focused on the tech, but maybe we should zoom out a little and think about the bigger picture. How does all this fit into AI development as a whole?
I think that's a great idea. Let's talk about the implications of all of this.
As we've been talking about 3FS and Smallpond, it's really hit me just how much different areas of technology are all kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's like a symphony of innovation. We tend to think of AI as this separate thing, but really it depends on all these advances in data storage, networking, processing power.
3FS is a perfect example of that. It's not just a file system. It's a whole blend of hardware, software, network architecture, all fine-tuned for AI.
It's made for AI from the ground up. And this trend of, specialization, it's just going to keep going. AI models are getting more complex all the time. They need more data. So we're going to need more specialized systems to handle it all.
So it's not even just speed anymore. It's about making these systems smarter, too.
Exactly. It's about adapting to the specific needs of AI, how it stores data, processes it, how it accesses information.
Which I guess brings us back to DeepSeek's open source approach. They're not just building AI models, they're building the infrastructure for AI.
And what's so cool about that is they're basically laying the groundwork for, like, the next wave of AI breakthroughs.
It's like giving everyone the building blocks to create new, innovative AI applications.
Imagine a future where researchers have access to these crazy, powerful tools so they can tackle problems that, seemed impossible before.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about what we could achieve. Breakthroughs in drug discovery, climate modeling, maybe even personalized medicine.
All because people are working together, sharing knowledge. It shows what we can do when we collaborate.
We've talked about so much in this deep dive, the nitty-gritty details of 3FS, the impact of open source. But as we wrap things up, I can't help but think about the human side of it all.
Yeah, that's important. It's easy to get caught up in all this talk about speed and efficiency and forget about how it affects people.
Right. What does all this mean for the average person? How will these advancements in AI change our everyday lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's still early, but I really think we're just at the beginning of a massive shift, a transformation driven by AI.
So AI will become, like, seamlessly integrated into our daily lives.
Exactly. Imagine AI assistants that are truly helpful, education that adapts to how you learn best, healthcare that can predict and prevent problems.
A world where AI helps us solve some of the biggest challenges we're facing.
It's exciting, but also a little scary, to be honest. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be interesting.
Well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive. We've gone deep into the world of cutting-edge AI, explored 3FS, Smallpond, and the power of open source.
It's been a great conversation.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop learning.